What's up, everybody? It's Jairo from the Grind Fitness Training Systems, and welcome to another topic. Today, we're going to talk about loaded stretching and fascia and how it affects you as a combat athlete. So, what is fascia? It's a common question. It's not a very common term that people hear. Um, so, what fascia is the connective tissue that wraps your muscles, your bones, and your joints. Now, why is this important? Because one of the biggest things you're going to know or you're going to notice um, that affects a little bit of your mobility and movement control is the lack of fascia, myofascial release and fascial strength. Okay, so if you're training consistently and you're training hard and you're still feeling your mobility is a little bit off, or you feel like you're not able to do those finite control movements, it's most likely your fascia. So you got to start peppering in things like loaded stretching into your regimen to increase the fascial receptors. Now, the benefit to the fascial receptors is that it's filled with stretch receptors that feed real-time information to your nervous system. Basically, it's telling your brain and your nervous system where you are in space. So the more you're able to kind of help that system be more efficient, the better your movement is, the better your mobility is, the better you are as a combat athlete. So there's no reason for you not to pepper it into your workout regimen. So I put here feedback is key. So the more information your CNS is able to get or receive, the more it understands where you are in space, the more agile you become, the more force output you're able to generate. A bunch of pluses when it comes to stuff like this. So one of the things I recently saw online through social media was George St. Pierre, very famous MMA fighter, in case you don't know who that is, where he was doing some stuff where he's standing barefooted on some PVC pipes with a couple sticks, and he's just rolling back and forth. That right there is all nervous system and fascial stretch receptors in order for you to get as much feedback to the body as possible. Super vital. So loaded stretching helps that. Okay, the benefits to it is you're going to increase your flexibility without sacrificing control, which is super important. Okay, so what I've noticed, I personally experienced this myself. So I'm kind of a big guy, never really did much flexibility. I got really into yoga for a while, and I was doing yoga like almost like 5-6 days a week. And what happens with yoga is that you don't learn how to do loaded flexibility. You just straight up stretching. And so, yes, my flexibility increased, but what ended up happening was that when I went to go do jujitsu or any type of grappling, all of a sudden I started having back pain. I'm like, why am I having back pain? Because I'm lifting, I'm stretching, what's going on? Well, what was happening was that I was increasing my flexibility, but I wasn't increasing that flexibility under load, which is why loaded stretching is going to help you with that, because you're going to not only increase your flexibility, but it's going to be under stress, under load, which is a good thing. Okay. Now, one of the benefits of this end range, or the loaded stretching, is that you're going to increase the strength at the joint levels end range, which means, let's say again, you do grappling and your arm is fully extended. If your arm is fully extended, you're going to get 1 or 2 extra degrees of strength that you didn't have before at the joint level, which reduces your risk of injury. I don't know about you, but I don't want to get hurt. And then another benefit is it enhances your striking flow and takedowns. Again, why wouldn't you want to do that? And then I already said this, injury prevention, and most importantly, it makes your movement more economical. So you're exerting less effort for the same amount of movement, which reduces your energy output, which in turn will allow you to increase your total output. Another benefit to it. So loaded stretching, it's not passive stretching, which is what you do in yoga to some degree. So a good example is like deep goblet squats. So getting a kettlebell, getting in that goblet position with your hands, and then basically doing the yoga squat where your butt is touching your calves. What I would do is pepper it in your warm-ups. So if you're going to do, let's say legs that day, you're doing squats, you're going to warm up with doing that deep goblet squat. So now it affects your proprioception and your CNS. Your proprioception basically means that your nervous system understands where you are in space. So the fascia sends signal to your brain to where you are in space. I just finished saying that. Why is that important? Because loaded stretching increases that system. What it does is it gives more information to your nervous system so that your nervous system understands where you are in space, which in turn will increase your performance under fatigue and reduce injury. I don't know about you, but those are all benefits from you just adding in a new warm-up system into your warm-ups when you go to the gym. Okay, so when you're doing programming for yourself, what you want to do is add 2 to 3 times a week within your warm-up some type of loaded stretching. Depends on what you're doing. So that depending on what you're trying to accomplish that day, depends on what type of loaded stretching you're going to do. So you're going to focus on going slow tempo, deep as possible range of motion, and then learning how to control your breath in those positions. Now, the biggest one that people have a tendency to do or have a tendency to overdo is you have to integrate this progressively. What do you mean? What do I mean by that? It's not max effort. So let's say you squat 225, just taking a number out of the air. You're not going to do a deep squat with 225. You're going to reduce that 20 to 30% of your total max, and then go from there. If that number is like 100 pounds, you go 100 pounds. And then month after that, you go 105 pounds. You do small incremental increases so that your body gets used to those loads. Because again, you're not trying to you're doing end range stuff. So you're stretching, but you're stretching under a loaded position. So you want to reduce the amount of injury while you're actually doing the movement. So you got to keep that in mind when you're doing this programming 2 to 3 times a week, which means high volume, slow tempo, giving the nervous system enough time to understand what you're trying to accomplish, largest and deepest ranges of motion, and learning to communicate to your CNS system through your breath. Super important. Do it slowly. It's not max effort. All right, guys, I hope that helped. As always, if you want, comment down below. Any questions, shoot me a DM. See you on the next topic.